a rental company, you're essentially a bank, and your currency is equipment.
You need to mix up your fleets. You need to have a great story.
If you look at any good NFL team, college team, they got to be good at the basics before they start running the trick plays.
You have to know the rental business. You have to be able to explain why you're going to be successful while other people aren't.
If you care for the success of others, they're going to care for your success as well. And we raise the entire bar as an industry.
Yeah. Keep coming with it. Keep coming with it. Keep coming with it. Place your bets on us. Get your money and flip it.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode number 115. We've got on Patrick Tunnicliffe. He's the CEO of RentalWise. Patrick, welcome back to the show today.
Hey, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been a little while.
Yes, you were OG, not just one of our first guests, but the first Rental Roundtable guest, right? So we've had 114 to practice since then. We've learned a lot about what to do and maybe what not to do on the podcast as it's evolved. I think when you started, the first one we did live on Zoom, webinar with people attending, and we had you do a presentation, which was great.
Yeah, totally.
And ultimately led, well, people like to listen it not live. They have a job to do in the day and they are driving when they listen to it. So the presentation format didn't work as well. But, I think when you agreed to come on the podcast, you were like, what is this thing? And I was like, just trust me. And appreciate you taking a risk with us and being our first ever guest. And here you are coming back again for number 115.
Yeah, it was so cool. And that was fun. Like you said, it was, what are we doing? What's it all about? What should I prepare? And sure enough, I think it was on the super fleet, the concept of growing a fleet, maybe capital and cash flow restricted. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. I have had plenty of folks talk about how, they've taken that webinar content and either thought hard about it or applied the concepts over the years. So it's really neat that it made a mark right from the get-go.
Yeah, well, the podcast wouldn't be here without you. So thank you for again trusting me and say, hey, Kyle, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to come on because I know you. So,
yeah. Are you still doing mugs? I think I got a mug.
Yes, we still are. So you make it another mug. Yeah, if you're a guest, you get a special roundtable mug. So, I used to get so nervous. Now it's more of a conversation with people, but I was so nervous for the first maybe 10 or 20. Now it's more like, oh, this is my friends. We're just talking. So, I've gotten over the fear of public speaking, I guess.
Yeah, I find when I do some public speaking, then it's all okay. But if it's been a while since doing public speaking, then I get the same heebie-jeebies. But it's all good once you get in front of a crowd, and especially when you're talking about subject matter that's like true and dear to your soul. Like you don't need to do a lot of scratching and scraping for something to say.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for me, weekly practice has helped over now 3 years. So.
Yeah, I bet.
So here we are today. We're going to talk a little bit about RentalWise, which just launched last month. GetRentalWise.com. It's a software review site. Very excited to talk to you about. But let's set the stage before that. For folks who didn't listen to the first ever Rental Roundtable, tell us briefly about your background and your story and how you got here today.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, what got me here is my background. And I think it's a particularly interesting path because it's a little unique. I guess everyone's got their unique path. So here's mine. I did mechanical engineering in school. So I guess technically minded, analytically minded. I finished that up and joined the Snowboard Cross Racing World Cup. I represented Canada doing that. At the same time, I was doing some engineering work. I actually had a firm that backed my efforts in pursuit for the 2010 Olympic Games. That dream didn't pan out, but I learned a ton about engineering, process creation and operational efficiency and whatnot on the professional side, and mental toughness and agility on the snowboard side. All of that came together, and in a some miraculous event of how the universe works, I ended up working in rental, equipment rental. So took those two backgrounds, mushed them together, grew this organization over 10 years from, I think there's 9 employees and eventually there was 33 employees, and, the revenue to follow suit, the fleet mix followed suit, and so on and so forth. Now that's all well and good, and it was a fun time. But what I didn't realize was the value of your community. I was really in the analytical engineer's mindset, driving like A/B testing, if you want to call it that, trial and error, I guess, probably more accurate, and very happy with how that went. But it was truly after that part of my life when I started facilitating peer groups for peer executive groups, was that, it was only shortly before that I realized that peer executive groups existed. Had I known, I would have been doing that all along and doing a lot less trial and erroring and using some proven ideas, community being the operable concept there. And so that gets me along to doing that with Dan Crowley and the team over there. And now I'm doing consulting in the space, EOS implementations, and we can talk a little bit about that. But motivated me to come up with RentalWise as a firm unto itself. And the title, focused product is for rental operators, and that's the software review platform. And it's not just a simple little software review platform necessarily, and it's certainly not trying to replace G2 or Capterra, those really horizontal platforms that ranks all the software. This one is for rental operators, and the content comes from rental operators for rental operators. So that's where I'm at now.
Well, I appreciate the story of I studied civil engineering in college. Used to think everything was a spreadsheet, right? And you realize there were humans in a human world. And you got connected with the peer executive group in Crowley. I've been telling everyone to join peer groups, and I wasn't in one myself. So I joined one 2 years ago, and I actually just got off my monthly meeting 10 minutes ago.
Perfect.
Because you kind of find get better together, sort of all, rising tide raises all boats sort of thing. And you don't have to go it alone. And I think with rental in particular, it's a very communal industry, and you can learn a lot from your peers if you connect to the industry. How do people connect? Like, if you're a newer rental company or someone out in the middle of Kansas, you don't have, a bunch of competitors across the street you want to talk to. How do you get connected to the industry and learn from each other?
Like what's my recommendation, or what do you say?
What would you suggest for someone who?
For sure. So like the community things first. That's what we've been hammering down. Like the peer groups. If you know about peer groups, you go and do that. But like Facebook groups are super good. There's a couple prominent ones in our industry, and there's a lot of our immediate peers posting there all the time, and then new entrants all the time. So like it just gets you to a level of calibration with how people are thinking in the industry, at least unto the types of people that are posting in the thread. So I think it's really valuable to go to those Facebook groups, get calibrated with what's being talked about, and I can elaborate on it, but like I actually pore over those groups. I'm up to date, and I understand, and I've even got like spreadsheets on like what subject matter is the hot topic of this month, last month, and across all of that. So peer groups, Facebook groups, the ARA show, that's another point of calibration. Like how big is the industry? Because it's very well represented there. It's equally benefiting vendors as it is the operators themselves, because there's the showing vendors and then there's the attending operators, but it's there to serve both sides of the market. There's that's all super good. Now, my advice obviously is to talk to RentalWise also, because we aggregate, like I said, all the subject matter, the hot topics, scorecard benchmarks, opinions of your guests, for example. All that is sort of in our repository that we use in engagements with clients. So like we give most of that away. There's some proprietary stuff that I truly use for clients, but the point is rise all ships, like you said, and that information is available and becoming more available on the site over time.
Yeah, so obviously GetRentalWise.com just launched recently. I think I totally agree with you on the horizontal G2 Capterra. I don't know any legitimate rental companies who are buying their rental software off of those sites, because they're just kind of, Quipli's got a page, everyone's got a page, but it's kind of like It's not great,
it's
right?
got
You're going to buy
limited
from people.
value. Yeah.
Limited. It's the same reason why people aren't running the rental business off of Salesforce or just HubSpot or QuickBooks, right? You got to have vertical software. That's the reason rental software as an industry even exists, verticalized focus. And what you found is in this industry, there's no vertical focused review site for software, right? You got horizontal G2, Capterra, that kind of crap. Yeah, you got the Facebook groups, which are interesting, but it's kind of chaos, right? Let's be honest, right? It's just kind of, what's your best rental software? And you just get, and it's really hard to filter through all the noise.
Exactly.
So you experienced that pain as an operator and trying to select rental software, and you've also experienced it facilitating the peer group, and rental software is a common topic in all the groups on a regular basis. So you found this niche. So tell us a little bit about RentalWise and how it works, and how you can use it.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. That my motivation was organic, and in peer groups, people are asking me all the time, and in my consulting and EOS implementations, what software should I use? Which one's the best? And like you said, in the Facebook groups, like it's awesome that it's there. It's just not well indexed and categorized, because somebody that's posting, hey, what's everyone using for software? The responders, as well intentioned as they aren't paying attention to your market, your fleet composition, and what like your problems are in your quarterly check-in with your teams. So RentalWise, the foundation of it is, just like the ARA is serving both vendors and operators, RentalWise is serving both vendors and operators. The vendors side of it is, we are providing the organic listing because I pay attention to what platforms are available, but I don't pretend to know everything about the platforms, and so that's where the vendors get involved. They can curate their listing to accurately represent their capacities of the system. And on the operator's side, anyone can review their software, past or present, and it's not just a 5-star review. They can actually review the listing for what's the good, what's the bad, what's not there, and like deep link, like a feature link, the good, the bad, and what's not there in their little review. A quick blurb, pros, cons, what your thoughts are, and what are the features that you claim that they do or don't have, because I don't know that stuff. That builds over review over review over review to come to summarize the equipment and event rental software platform vertical. And now we have a very well indexed, very well classified set of softwares where vendors can pay to get visibility, but they can't pay for like a ranking. I should say I do offer an editorial review opportunity for vendors to invest in, where again, they're not paying for a ranking like they actually kind of might be doing in horizontal review sites. And it's all vetted both ways. Like the operators that might disagree with an assessment that I make or a claim that a vendor makes can just say so on the site, and vice versa. If an operator says a platform doesn't have something or it stinks, then the vendor actually has an opportunity to come in with their branded voice and say, well, here's actually what you might have missed, or, please reach out. I'm so-and-so at this vendor. Because that's sort of like what's missing, I think, in the Facebook threads, is the vendors don't get sort of a word in edgewise. At least it's not all that comfortable for them to do so. But RentalWise solves for that for both sides. What I'm particularly proud about is the taxonomy, as like the features get described by an operator, and they're built and deployed by the platform and by the vendor. It's actually okay to have payments as an aspect of contract management, but it's also an aspect of invoice management, because if you're doing prepaid invoicing or postpaid invoicing, it sort of exists in both places. So I'm particularly proud of how we have created a taxonomy that works for everybody and consolidates those features into a RentalWise sort of proprietary list of features.
Yeah, well, I think one thing I think you've nailed is this kind of the unbiased view of the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
even these Facebook groups are kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of noise in there, right?
Yep.
Um,
It's a
even
lot
if
of
you
good,
go,
but a lot of
if you
noise.
Google, Quipli versus competitor, right? All of our competitors have pages, and they compare Quipli versus them, and
Right.
everybody does it. And the reality is, if you own the page, your company's going to win the check mark, right? And I don't
Yeah.
think anybody believes that, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Like, of course, if whoever hosts whatever rental software, of course, they're going to be checked as the best. But like, you've kind of solved that by
Yeah.
being like, we're going to be like a Reddit sort of page. It's going to be
Exactly.
moderated, and we're going to have real, honest feedback about how the software is performing.
That's exactly, and you nailed it there in that example. It wasn't top of my mind, but those comparison tools now, and RentalWise has a comparison tool, so you can actually rifle down 2 or more platforms in that exact way, except for the results are curated by your peers, peers, like the community, the peers that rise all ships. There's yin and yang. I've worked so hard to make the operator experience and the platform and vendor experience to be sort of equalized and level footed for exactly that reason.
Well, certainly, obviously, in the Facebook groups, as a vendor, we don't feel comfortable going in there because it could very, very quickly turn
Right.
promotional, and we just have taken the tack of like, let's just kind of avoid it, right? And I think
Yep.
what's interesting, you kind of hear someone's like, "Hey, what rental software should I get?" And you get people like, "You should use XYZ," and like,
Yeah.
they don't know anything about the company, and it's like saying, "Hey, Patrick, I want to run faster," and you're like, "Well, I think you should." Run 60 miles a week and do like, you don't know how fast I am, what running experience I am, what race we're talking about, what my previous times are, my injury history. Like, if you have all that context and you're a coach, you can say, okay, here's actually the plan I'm going to give you, right? And well-meaning, the Facebook groups are not designed for that. It's not software. Facebook was not designed to be a rental software review site. What you built is the deep taxonomy to go line by line, really understand a rental company and ultimately what they need. Because what rental company A needs is sometimes very different than what rental company B needs. And there's no perfect rental software for everybody.
Exactly. Right at the hop, when a vendor claims a listing, because like I said, I basically put the listing on there, but when they claim it, they have the opportunity to classify the platform to be browser-based, remote desktop. Is it cloud exclusive or cloud or server, and so on and so on and so on across the deepest of industry poignant classifications that I have been able to wrap my head around that would be helpful to the users. Regional, for example, is this a US exclusive platform? Because there's taxation issues. Like, can we handle the taxes of Texas? Can we handle the taxes of Ontario in Canada? There's where's the data reside with sort of security considerations are there. And then of course the classics. Are we general tool? Are we general tool plus construction equipment? Are we party and event? And or all the way down. So with some horsepower in peer review and these classifications being completed more maturely, then you'll be able to go list through the entire platform and you come up with an ARA software walk based on exactly the listings that how they apply to you. Because there's not a lot of point in visiting a dozen booths that exclusively deal with construction equipment rental when you're an event rental proprietor. And then just to speak to the compare and contrast, like if a vendor claims to do party and event, and therefore the features associated with party and event are listed on the listing, and an operator comes across that says, "Hey, I run this software, and maybe it's worth speaking up that this might not be quite as true, and as it might be," and they can post up anonymously if they have to. But what I really like is when they post, the operator themselves have the equal classifications. Like, I am a one-store operator in this geography with this approximate fleet, and if you want this approximate revenue, and these are my thoughts about platform X.
Over time, you're going to get a really awesome market map that probably the whole industry wants to know, which is like based on these criteria, number of locations, niche of rental, you're going to see different pockets of circles,
Yeah.
and you're going to say like this one's actually the best for this, and this one's the best for this. I think the other thing I've kind of learned, we've done thousands of rental software demos at our team at this point, and it is still amazing to me how the littlest, tiniest, tiny little features like are the biggest deal to people. Like they're like, look, we love everything, but this one thing, this cycle bill needs to do this one thing on this certain use case on a Sunday, and it needs to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that is like you're not going to get that in a Facebook group. You're not going to get that on a website. Like the taxonomy and level of detail is what's required to really understand these little nuances that make a really big deal to rental companies.
Exactly. And it gets indexed like for good instead of posted, scrolled to infinity and forgotten. So yeah, it's there, it's saved, and people can pile on that and they can search and find that type of review, positive review, negative review, slice and dice it however they want.
So it's very early. I've been checking the website. So you've got 150 features cataloged, 81 platforms tracked, which is like, that is crazy. I didn't know there were that many rental softwares. 81. That's what you've got.
Yeah. Now, I did make a decision recently to engage with integration partners. For example, Happen, Telematics. So it came with early feedback and whatnot that when somebody offers telematic features as a software vendor and it is delivered by way of, we'll say, Happen Telematics, well, that's still a legitimate feature, whether it's written in code by the software vendor or through a partnership. So it dawned on me that we need to expand outside of the perfect vertical from, to at least one degree of freedom to involve integration partners. So I think of that 81 listing, there's like 7 or 8 or 10 integration partners right now. And also to speak to that, when we'll say Quipli's listing has offered or claimed telematics functionalities, if that is by way of Happen, it's shown that it's by way of Happen. You can see it that way, and you can rank it that way or rate it from that perspective.
Interesting. Yeah, because obviously from a user perspective, you don't really care where the line of code lives in this software, but if it's integrated in it and the whole stack works, that's ultimately what you care, the whole solution, right? And I think there's probably a dozen partners you could have. You could have Google Maps for the routing, right? And QuickBooks and Stripe for payments and Happen and specialty equipment insurance services and Rouse and Smart Equip. And it's a good point. Like the rental software is the control point and the ERP in the center. This is definitely the center of what you're building. But like having all those partners and being able to say, hey, I'm a Happen user and I need to look at softwares that integrate with Happen. Okay, well, that 70 is now come to 10, right? Or whatever. And being able to...
You got it.
It's huge.
Yep. It's today it's indexed like that. You can find it like that.
Because I mean, that's all. I mean, just kind of save so much time for people because you get on demo, like, do you integrate with it? And it's like, you just need to know that ahead of time because it's a good, like, if we don't integrate with these 5 things, it's just kind of a waste of time for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
You want to know that up front.
Yeah. So you can see as a recovering rental operator, these were my pains that I went through. I was shopping software. I was implementing software. I implemented software, but I went through, as you have performed thousands of demos, out to end users, I was one of them. And those classic sentiments that a rental operator feels when going through the classic sales process. Now, everyone's sales process is different from a vendor perspective, but I think the operators have feels that come out of that. I have felt those, and that is the organic, the genesis of this idea. It's where it's come from. I think there's enough of a opportunity to help everyone out forever in this. All we need is the operators to step up and start listing reviews so that the features are becoming, statistically significant and a good representation of what of each platform is. The operators provide that. A vendor never needs to spend a dime to benefit from that. The vendor can just send happy operators to go start linking features and saying good, or I guess they wouldn't say go put bad things on there, but hopefully point out where things are missing that we would benefit from developing. That's because we can do it that way. Then that rises all ships. truly believe that.
For sure. Well, I mean, you've experienced the horror stories. You hear about the horror stories. Like, there's a lot of tough rental software migrations and transitions, and the hit rate is not 100%, right? And and for
No,
the vendor itself, like, it's not in our best interest to have a failed implementation, because
no.
you're probably going to lose money on that contract. You're going to have this. It's going to be a tough experience for your employees. The rental company is going to be upset, and that message gets out in the talk about the tight community of rental. It just, and if you can kind of shortcut that, whatever the fail rate is, and cut it in half, because you're at least now starting on the right foot and asking those questions that are too late to ask often in the demo, and you kind of can avoid some of that buyer's remorse. It's just huge for everybody.
Yeah, there's just some resistance, so some friction to every transaction, and I think that's kind of the worst case scenario is through the sales process and discovery process and pre-implementation process and during and post-implementation process. Sometimes it's hard to get the question across or to be able to articulate the concern, or all parties can be as well intentioned as possible, but there's just, we can only do so much, whether it's in person, virtual, when we're making these purchasing decisions and when we're doing these implementation decisions all the way through. Statistically, there's some exposure to a failed project, and if I can help, I guess you could say if I can help one person, then it's success. But I think the whole industry stands to benefit from this sort of platform.
Well, for sure. We've talked about, like, the horizontal review sites, they fail. Facebook groups help, for sure. They could put you in the right direction,
sure.
like take the 70 down to here's 3, right? That helps. But, like, you definitely have identified a pain point in the market. And obviously, we build vertical software, and what you've found is building vertical review site.
Exactly.
You've been working on this for a while now. You've been launched in the last month. What have you learned in the process? What surprised you? What's different than what you thought? What have you been learning?
Well, the first example I used there was, holy smokes, I guess, like the integration partners data or member layer is important. So there was that, and as far I came into it with a particular mission, like I want to represent it this way, and then, well, I guess I need to expand my taxonomy. I need to expand my user base, whether that's operators or vendors, to this degree. And so that was interesting. And when I've shown people the platform, actually, I'm going to give away how long I've been working on this with this response, but I talked to you once upon a time in probably 2023 about what would a vendor want to see in this sort of thing, and you said, well, you said a lot of things. It was very, very helpful. I'm forever indebted to you for your feedback on this idea back then. But you develop quickly as a software event. Like, the features are rolling out, if not every day, every week, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to be visiting a listing on an annual basis. Like, some horizontal review platforms might have an annual agreement where the listing is visited just very infrequently. So RentalWise, I realized I had to build it out in such a way that a vendor's page owner, just to give away some of the administrative layering that's involved, can go in and light up or inactivate a feature that no longer exists or just became, and they can do that on the day of the launch, and they can go and ask their beta users to provide feedback on it. Of course, you have your internal systems, but in a public sense, you can do it that way. So that was a huge pivot, was creating an engine for the vendors to be self-serving, but in a way that sort of validated the whole idea. Because without that ability to go in and it's not scrubbing reviews. You can't touch that, but you can elaborate on your platform on a day-to-day basis.
Well, for sure. And I think especially in the age of AI, like, features are going to be moving faster. And if it's a static page, it's kind of like,
Exactly.
it's like what features you had a year ago sort of irrelevant because of how quickly the world's changed. Like, pretty soon you're probably gonna have an AI section. Here are the AI features. Do you have a voice agent? Do you have a chat agent? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's something that wouldn't have been thought about 12 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think the dynamic element's important.
Yeah, and speaking of which, in the last 2 weeks, I've implemented, I think part of it is public now, but the AI ability and capacity of the platforms is now indexed on the site in some way, shape, or form. There's more coming. But if somebody has got a AI powered route optimization, we'll say, then a vendor can have a listing that claims route optimization classically, just normal, but you can have an AI claim attached to that particular functionality. So therefore, you either had no route optimization or you already had route optimization and now you're adding the AI component to it and inviting the greater operator industry, or not industry, but all the operators. Like if you have this claim now, then you're exposing yourself to review. Like people can review. I guess I didn't mention that is the platforms get reviews as you would expect, but RentalWise exposes the category or module for review and the features themselves for review. So a platform can have a layer of reviews beyond just its platform. In fact, it could exclusively be reviewed on granular features if that was where the cards landed. All summarized up. We do aggregate it on a platform and site basis, so you can see all those layers. But yeah, AI is now lit up, and the AI ability is something that I'm pretty excited that I'm working on, because I think it's really important that operators are thinking, and this is sort of, it's almost a segue, but like in my consulting, people are wondering how to AI their organization. So naturally, as a side effect of the advices that I give in the other parts of the RentalWise business is, I hit this part of my SOP where I need a function or a feature, like a check-in or a check-out of equipment. And for some reason, I want it to be AI. We can look up through the index, who's got check-in and check-out functionality that's AI powered. B, in the consulting where I help people build SOPs, here's the step of the SOP and how we integrate it into boots on the ground operations, where a software actor starts getting involved. So we have, there's a bit of a flywheel going on at RentalWise in that the software features integrate in our SOPs, which integrates into like EOS like implementations and KPIs and benchmarks. They all start harmonizing together.
I'm curious how you think about the future of rental software with AI in particular, right? Because you've been an operator, you run a peer group of a lot of operators. You've now got the only equipment rental software review site in the world right now, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of think about these things, you hear about it, you've experienced about it. Like, how do you think about AI in the realm of rental software for the next maybe 3 to 5 years?
It is going to be so fun. Like software platforms, this is what I've been thinking about. This is less of subject matter coming out of peer groups, but what I think is the software vendors have this really cool opportunity now to become a little bit less closed if they sort of lean toward the closed deployment style, like offering an API or a model MCP, model context protocol, I think it is. Now you can have, if you're tooling around with AI, a dashboard that reaches into your book of record, your rental record, for valuable information. Like now the rental softwares can, with very little effort, turn on the ability for everyday rental operators to do super cool stuff. And maybe that ties into a third party platform that the rental software doesn't accommodate. Say CRM. Say you've got a third party CRM that isn't already managed by your rental software. Well, if you can get a customer history, I don't know, heaven forbid you have like a review, internal review feedback loop through your CRM with your customers that you can aggregate onto your morning coffee dashboard. that kind of thing. The rental platform can participate in that, passively or actively by having those abilities available. Hence why in the last couple of weeks it became obvious that there's a requirement basically for RentalWise to support the indexation and of AI applicable features. An API is classically something that you can use.
Well, you've heard my spiel on this system of record, turning the system of action. I think it's a very exciting time to be building software. And I think we're going to be moving also to a point of amazing and wow software. Like, have you seen what X can do? Right. And for a while, to be honest, the last 10 years of software, it's kind of like, it's fine, works sort of. But like, I think we're going to be moving in the next year to like, oh my God, look at this thing that can be done now. Like, I have an after hours voice agent that booked 5 rentals last night. Right. And our customers love it. Right. And I think we're going to be moving into those wow moments in the next year, which is really exciting for the industry, but also for the software developers, because you got to get to work on something that's new and exciting. Right. For the first time in a long time.
Yeah. The thing is, those ideas like can come from anyone. And with AI, it's like almost all possible. Like, I guess there's some sort of extreme limits and safeties and so on you got to be wary of. But if you can dream it, it's probably worth something. And it's probably worth its salt, and it's probably deployable in one way, shape, or form. And it's not necessarily held back by a product roadmap that looks 18 months or 36 months into the future. Like, it's not necessarily dependent on that anymore.
For sure, which is why I'm glad your site is dynamic, because I think the features that are on your site 12 months from now, we don't even know about yet. Right? That's kind of how fast this will be moving. And it's exciting and scary, because if you can get left behind very fast also in this world.
Yeah. So thank you. That's exactly why operators can today log in and suggest a feature against the platform.
I love it.
It's out of the box.
Well, thank you for coming on, Patrick, and sharing everything. I think you got a special offer for Rental Roundtable listeners, right? If you go to the website, can you tell more about that?
Yeah, that's right. It's right on the landing page, or get RentalWise/Rental Roundtable. There's an invitation to join RentalWise as a vendor or an operator. And when you leave your first review, then it lights up 4 ebooks, which are basically, we'll call them brain dumps of particular subject matter, aggregated from Rental Roundtable podcast, what I've been reading in the Facebook groups, from Equipment Rental Journal, and so on and so on and so forth. Elliot Vigil comes up quite a bit on the sales side, but it's basically 4 ebooks, more coming, and there's going to be coming forever, so that rental operators can come to RentalWise to get their software fixed, but they can also get their operations fixed. And then if you want to reach out further for help directly to RentalWise for implementing EOS, anything, then that's all beyond that. But the free giveaways are there for you. Just leave a review; it automatically unlocks.
Awesome. Well, last question I asked, which I didn't ask when we started. This is a newer thing in the last 70 episodes. But best career advice you've gotten that's helped shape your success and what you're doing today.
Best career advice that I've gotten. Let's see. I think going back to my teenage years, I worked in a marina. That's actually, I guess it was the first career advice I ever got. Got my first job, and I thought it was like I thought working was like what you see on the TV show Friends. Like, you're at the coffee shop or whatever, and everyone's just hanging out. And so I thought that was what work was. So the boss comes in, he sees me sitting on the counter, literally talking with a coffee, and he's like, turns around, walks away, because he just couldn't believe what he's seen. And this is a generational delta here. This is like boomer, classic boomer. He comes back, he's like, come with me, and gives me what he called the infinity list. Or I guess I've come to terms with referring to it as the infinity list. He's like, here's everything that we always have to have done. And it's on a daily, weekly, and a monthly basis. So if you ever find yourself feeling like sitting on the counter, drinking a coffee and gabbing away, start on the list, because you're obviously not busy. And that I managed to keep my job. It got me like promoted. Like I did so well there once I understood what the real work was. But then it translated to just the rest of my life. Like I know that I need to be focused on what's happening in a year. And this is very like EOS, like what's the 1 year goal? And that's listed clearly and on a quarterly basis, a monthly basis, a weekly basis, and a daily basis. And, if you only write down the real important stuff, then it's sort of like a perfect EOS deployment. Then you're always focused on those big rocks being sorted out, and then fit in the rest in between those things, because those big rocks have to be what happens. So yeah, from getting my butt kicked off the counter and full circle helping rental operators implement EOS, that was definitely the best lesson. And it started right at the beginning.
Well, good to learn that early. The Infinity List as a software vendor, we have the Infinity List. I'm sure you feel like that with Get RentalWise. You've already launched it, and you're like, there's more to do. There's always more, right? So,
totally.
Congrats on your launch recently. GetRentalWise.com. Thanks for everything you do for the industry, Patrick, and looking forward to following along on the success here.
Thanks so much, Kyle. A lot of fun, just like the first time.
That's right. We'll do another one in 114 episodes now. We'll do another one.
Sounds good. See you later.
All right. Thanks.